Mark chapter 11. Go into Mark 11. We're going to read starting at verse 12. And on the morrow, when they came from Bethany, Jesus was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if happily he might find anything thereon. And when he came to the fig tree, he didn't find anything but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. Verse 14, Jesus answered and said unto this tree, No man eat fruit from you ever again. No man eat fruit from you ever again. And his disciples heard it. So Jesus is looking at an actual tree, and he's hungry, and there's no fruit on the tree, and he just kind of stands there looking at this tree, talking to it, and he's like, no fruit growing you ever again. And he cursed this tree. And it says the disciples heard it. And they came to Jerusalem. Jesus went into the temple, began to cast them out that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables and the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves. And he would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called a house of all nations, a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him. For they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his doctrine. And when the evening was come, he went outside of the city. So notice this. There's a tree. Jesus walks up to the tree, curses the tree. There's no fruit on the tree. The disciples heard it. Immediately, right after this, they go into the temple. They meet these scribes and Pharisees, these religious teachers of the law. So we've got this fig tree, we've got Jesus cursing it, and then we've got Jesus smack dab confronting religion. Okay, so let's keep going. And in the morning, verse 20, in the morning as they passed, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, calling to remembrance, says to Jesus, Master, behold, the fig tree that you cursed is withered away. And Jesus answering said unto him, Have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whatsoever you will say to this mountain, be thou removed, be cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in your heart, but shall believe that the things that you say shall come to pass, you'll have whatever you say. Therefore I say unto you, whatsoever things you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you will have them. And when you stand praying, forgive, if you have anything against anybody, that your Father, which is in heaven, may forgive you your sins. But if you don't forgive, neither will your Father, which is in heaven, forgive your sins. And so we've got Jesus at a fig tree. He's hungry. He curses it because there's no fruit on it. And then we've got Jesus immediately confronting these people in the temple that were religious. He was confronting religious scribes and Pharisees and people that were making a quick dollar off of God's people. Then we have Jesus saying, okay, if you speak to this mountain, it's going to be removed. And then he says the qualifying factor is that you better forgive people that you haven't forgiven, or none of this will ever work for you. This is what Jesus says. He says, this is my promise, but the qualifying factor is you must forgive. If you don't forgive, you get nothing. You get zero. When you look at the mountains in the Bible, you all know I've said this before, when you look at mountains in the Bible, mountains represent something. So when it says, you shall say unto this mountain, what is he really saying? Well, Jesus is going to appear on the Mount of Olives. That's what Scripture teaches. The Ten Commandments were given on Mount Sinai. The Israelites, when they turned from God, they worshipped under every high hill. In Mark chapter 5, a demon-possessed man, the demons would drive him to the mountains. So it's a place where you meet with God. Mountains always represent a place of divine encounter. God always came on the mountain. It's always where he came. Demons also came on the mountain. You look at Elijah and the 400 false prophets of Baal. What mountain were they on? Mount what? Carmel. Mount Carmel. They were on the mountain fighting false religion. And so when Jesus says in Mark 11, speak to this mountain, what is he saying? He's saying that you've got some false religion in your life. Isn't he? Is that not what the mountain represents? Does it not represent false religion? Does it not represent false Christianity? The fig tree that he cursed, it says that it died the next day. What fruit is in your life that doesn't need to be there? You see, Jesus was looking for fruit. There was none there. But you and I have fruit that shouldn't be there. Do you get it? Yeah. we got fruit that shouldn't be there. There's some rotten fruit in all of us, and there always will be. And you see, day by day by day, we have to go and curse that mountain. What is that mountain? It's not the person beside me in church. It's not the person who said a mean thing to me. The mountain is inside of me. The reason I don't have my fire with God isn't because of you. The reason that I go back into certain sins isn't because of anything else but a root inside of me that's producing fruit inside of me that God doesn't want. And so often we say, God, I've tried everything. I wanted to get this out of my life. And I just keep going back to it. But Jesus gives us this promise in verse 23. He says, listen, whoever says to this mountain, what is the mountain? False religion. Whoever says to this mountain, this false religion, this power that's in your life, this encounter that you're having with this sin, if you speak to it, like I spoke to the fig tree, and you begin to do, I will turn the tables in the temple, and your temple, your body, won't be a house of sin, it'll be a house of prayer. This is what he's saying. This is what he's saying in Mark 11. Because Jesus curses it, then he goes into the temple, starts flipping tables on religious people. Then he talks about this mountain. And then we look at the mountain. It's always religion in the Bible. It's where you have an encounter with a divine entity. And then you finally have him given the qualifying factor, which is you better forgive those that have sinned against you. Because if you don't, none of that fruit will ever leave your life. He gives the key. And the key is always forgiveness. But the power, now here's what we do in our Christianity. We often ask God to deliver us. And that's not a bad thing because God hears our prayers. It's not a bad thing. But it's not what it says here. It says that if you say to the mountain that's in your life, be thou removed. And God promises that his power will be activated through you commanding it to go. Do you get it? He says that if thou shalt say, not wait for me to say, he says, no, I've already given you my spirit. I've already given you authority. I've given you a promise that if you would do this, it would come to pass in your life. And you see, it may not be the next day, because one day is as 1,000 years. And 1,000 years is like one day in the mind of God. When he says, be thou removed, be picked up, cast into the sea, he's referring to a power that works within us that is counterfeit Christianity. Because the mountain always represents divine encounter. And so, when he says speak to it, he's talking about, you see, he cursed the fig tree, and then the next day they saw that it was dead, and then he gives the teaching on the mountain. See, Jesus knew what he was going to be teaching the next day. Because that's why he cursed the fig tree. He curses the fig tree on Monday, and he says on Tuesday, I'll be telling them about the mountain, and they'll remember the fig tree. It all connects. You get it? All connects. And so the fig tree is the rotten fruit that's in your life caused by the mountain of false religion that won't leave because I won't forgive. And if I forgive, then the rotten fruit from the fig tree that's caused by the mountain will be gone and I'll be delivered. Amen.